Yo, what is up everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel. And in this video, I'm going to be doing a kind of late but necessary recap of our final Week 16 championship season. And I'm also going to tell you guys what is, to come ahead for the channel now that we're heading into the off season, or at least the fantasy off season. So with that being said, if you guys have been following my channel, you know that I've been kind of giving you a play-by-play of my 3 fantasy football leagues. And I'm just going to tell you how I did across those 3 leagues. As you guys know, we made the playoffs in all of them. We made the championship game in 2 of them. And we made the 3rd place game in 1 of them, okay? So, if you guys have been kind of following along and maybe listening to some of the decisions that I've been making, hopefully that helped you kind of make your playoffs and hopefully some championship games as well. So this is my first championship game that we're going to look at. This is our auction league that we've been talking about all season long, and we did end up winning this. And by the way, I am posting this video late, like a couple weeks after the championship, as I mentioned. This was a Week 16 championship, not a Week 17. So that is not why I waited to post this, okay? I just never got around to it. I've been having computer issues, and I was just not doing it. I don't know why. So don't think I was playing in Week 17. This was a Week 16 championship, okay? So this is our championship game, and this is a championship we won this year. I'm very proud of it. This is actually the team that we played last year in the championship game. Last year we got 2nd place to this team, and this year we were able to pull off the victory. You see the box score here. A huge addition to the team last minute was Melvin Gordon scoring 14.1 points. Gronk had a big game, so those two got me off to a hot start on the week. Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts didn't have great weeks, but it was solid enough to kind of keep me afloat. And yeah, a bunch of my receivers had pretty good games. And you can look at the bench. Between DJ Moore and Amari Cooper, I could never make the right start-sit decision. So if you guys listen to me for advice on them, I usually pick the wrong one, more often than not at least. So apologies for that if you were relying on me for that information. But they just kept flip-flopping in my lineup, and I feel like I always benched the one that scored more. But it didn't matter. We were able to get the dub here. So yeah, 1 league, 1 championship. Again, this is a 10-team auction league. So I mean, some big highlights from this, like value-wise that I got from this league, like Melvin Gordon for 11 out of 200 fab dollars. Kyler Murray, I paid up for him 25 out of 200 fab dollars, but I would say it was worth it, even though he didn't, end the year super strong. He was still decent throughout, or he's still really good throughout the year. I picked up Jalen Hurts off the waiver wire. I didn't play him his first 2 weeks when he blew up, and then I finally put him in my lineup, and he didn't have a great game, but he was still my best second quarterback. Oh no, Matt Ryan I could have played him, and he would have had a few more points, but they were basically the same. Tyreek Hill, 29 out of 200. I pretty much built this team around wide receivers, 22 out of 200. And this is a 3 wide receiver league. So that's kind of, why I decided to do that. You see Allen Robinson right there for 21 out of 200. So I got some very good values on these receivers, guys. And I guess that's my one tip, $20 for DJ Moore. So since this is out of a 200 fab budget, you basically cut that in half, and that's what it would be out of a $100 budget. So yeah, basically what I learned is that you can get a lot of good values on wide receivers because there's a lot of good receivers in the league right now. It's a pass-heavy league. $23 for Amari Cooper. And then a guy like James Conner, who I didn't love coming into the season just because of his injury history, we got him for 20 out of 200 fab dollars. I like that value, so that's like a 10% of your auction value, or of your auction budget. And he started the year well, but as usual, he got hurt and he kind of faded a little bit. So those were some of my bigger value picks in that league. And then just to give you an idea of what this season, or what the roster looked like at the beginning of the year, the core players really were pretty much the same. You see Ryan and Kyler Murray. I mean, those guys were both on my team throughout. Jared Goff was on my team throughout. I ended up dropping Mitchell Trubisky when he got benched, and then he, took over the starting job, and he was actually a decent option. And you see, I still had Connor and Gordon. I had my, 5 receivers with Hill, Ridley, Moore, Robinson, and Cooper. Zach Ertz and Higbee. This was a bad draft pick, I think, for me. I probably paid up for Zach Ertz. Only 7. I mean, 7 out of 200 fab bucks, or auction dollars, I should say. That's really not. He was a bust, but at that price, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Tyler Higbee also didn't have that great of a year. I got him for 2. So yeah, I mean, you can see that was kind of where we started the year. A bunch of my bench players really didn't pan out, like Higbee, Cohen, Carrion, Sony. But yeah, That was pretty good. And then also one thing that, I gotta actually tell you guys one more thing before we move on to the next league. So my opponent played Daryl Henderson against me, and he had 6.2 points, right? So I previously had Henderson on my team. I started him kind of in the middle of the season, and that's what you're not going to see. I only showed you my week 1 box score and my week 16 box score. Obviously there were players moving on and off the roster throughout the season, but I just thought I'd show you week 1 to give you an idea of like overall how the roster changed from week 1 to the end, and I'll be doing that in the other leagues as well. But Henderson was a guy who was on my team sort of like in the middle of the season, like the 3/4 point, and then Akers took over, and then my opponent actually picked up Akers, and I dropped Daryl Henderson like a few weeks before Akers got hurt, and then my opponent picked up Henderson and played him against me, and that actually helped me win because he played Henderson who had 6.2 points and benched Ezekiel Elliott who had 15.9. So you can do the math there. He would have scored 9.7 more points if he would have played Zeke, and he would have beat me if no other decisions were different. So that's pretty freaky. And if I had Henderson, I probably wouldn't have picked up Leonard Fournette and played him. I probably just would have plugged Henderson into my lineup. So that was pretty freaky. Glad that all worked out the way it did. Moving on to our second league, I'll try to speed this up a little bit, but I know for anyone who's been following along, you probably want to see how the league turned out. So I want to let you guys know because this is pretty cool. This is our 12-team non-PPR league. This is my longest running league. It's been going for a long time, since I was in high school. And we made it to the championship game. This would have been our 3rd championship in this league if we did win. And by the way, this other league, this was only the 2nd year of its existence. So I've made the championship game twice, won it once. Okay, so this one, it's been in existence for a while. This would have been our 3rd title, but as you can see, we had a terrible week. My opponent really didn't have that good of a week either. You can see the box score here. Look at my team, like Breeze. I mean, Breeze could have had a good game, but Kamara just got all the touchdowns against my Minnesota Vikings. Montgomery and Godwin had good games. Montgomery, you can make a case he was a fantasy MVP this year because I think he was like a 6th, 7th round pick because there was some speculation about an injury. Plus, he didn't have a great rookie year. And especially down the stretch in the playoffs, if you had him, there's a good chance you made it far in your playoffs if, the rest of your team didn't do what my team did. I didn't really make any bad sit decisions, really. I just didn't have McCaffrey. I picked up Will Fuller before the week just because I drafted Will Fuller. I ended up dropping him once he got suspended, but I thought I'd add him to the team just like in the spirit of him helping me get to the playoffs and all that. But so I was without those two. I picked up Savant Ahmed in case he was starting, but Myles Gaskin came back and had a huge game. So I would have loved to get this guy in my lineup if Gaskin wasn't playing. And then I was without Raheem Mostert, who early in the season I traded like Noah Fant for, I think. It was like a weird trade that I accepted instantly, pretty much. And then, you see my opponent. He didn't have a great week either, but better than mine. He had a goose in his lineup with Corey Davis, but it's just unfortunate. Lockett didn't have a good game. He really struggled down he only had a couple good games this year, really. Same Hawkinson, he started pretty well, but at the end of the season, he kind of faded. Knowing what I know now, I think Claypool in week 17, he had a touchdown. Lockett had a good game in week 17. The number 1 fantasy kicker for me, and he only had 2 points. So it was just an overall terrible week for my team. Just super unlucky. And with all the injuries I had, plus like Zach Ertz not panning out, it just really, really didn't bode well for me to win the game. But I am proud of, the players on the team, even though they don't know who I am. I'm proud of my team for at least, making it to the championship with all these injuries, my number 1 overall pick getting hurt, Will Fuller getting suspended. So that was crazy. And then here is my week 1 roster, just kind of do a little comparison. As you can see, there's McCaffrey, 25 points. And if you guys are wondering what I think about McCaffrey, I'm not worried about him next year. I think you can still make a case that he's the number 1 overall pick up there with a guy like maybe Dalvin Cook. It'd probably be between those two, honestly. And you can't say that McCaffrey has injury problems without saying, Dalvin Cook does, because Cook has a extensive injury history as well. But McCaffrey, players get injured, right? So if I had to draft today, I'd still probably take McCaffrey at the 101. Because even if he doesn't get the massive workload that we've seen him get, he's still been so efficient and he's so involved in the passing game that even if he sees like a decent reduction in his workload, he's still going to be a workhorse running back. Unless they like really change that up. And he's just so valuable, especially in PPR. And this is a non-PPR league, as I said, so I would still probably take him 101, but it's probably between him and Dalvin Cook at this point. And this is my team to start the year. Carson was a good player throughout the season. Obviously, Will Fuller was until he got suspended. Lockett, he had a couple good games. I think I might make a video about Tyler Lockett, but As you can see, he had one good game right there. He started the season pretty well, honestly. 3 good games, like, you know, good to amazing to start the season. Then he kind of fell off a little bit, had that amazing game, and then after that, you know, he had like one good game right there against Arizona, who we had his other amazing game against. So yeah, I'll have to talk about him. This kind of is alluding to what I'm going to talk about later for what's coming up on the channel. But yeah, Tyler Lockett kind of faded down the stretch. And I'll probably be making a video about him as well as a bunch of other players moving forward into the offseason. And just kind of looking at my core players really were, a lot of them were like on the same, other than McCaffrey and Fuller, who, you know, missed time. Ertz, who turned out to be a bust. If you look at the bench, you know, Hawkinson was a great pick. I drafted him late. Montgomery was an amazing pick. But a lot of these guys on the bench, again, really didn't last. I got some production out of Jackson and Kelly. I traded Noah Fant, as I said, for Raheem Mostert. I think I got Mostert and Deshaun Jackson. I don't know why the guy wanted Noah Fant that bad. But, I mean, Raheem Mostert, he missed enough games where I really didn't get that much production out of Mostert, even though, you know, as a whole, he didn't have a bad season when he was playing. But you know, it was just he had a weird season, like with injuries. And then finally, we're going to move on to our last league here. So this is me playing for the third place, in this dynasty league. So we got a first place, a second place, and now we're playing for third place in this league. This is a 10-team half PPR dynasty league. Here is the championship game. He had Alvin Kamara on his team and he won. I mean, he had a crazy good week. And actually, the guy I played, he almost made the championship game. If he would have made a couple different decisions the previous week, he would have made it. And he would have been able to take down Alvin Kamara because he scored more points than the team that had Alvin Kamara in week 16. But unfortunately, he was in the third place game against me. And if you're scoring more points than the team that played Alvin Kamara, that's going to be tough to beat. And I was not able to beat that team. Even though, you know, my team did have a good week. You can see the box score right here. Brady, McKissick, Taylor, Sanders, Cooper, they all had good weeks. Godwin and Kittle coming back from that injury. Hopkins and Marvin Jones were a little disappointing. I think if Stafford would not have left that game, I think Marvin Jones could have had a much bigger game. You saw it in week 17 against the Vikings. He had a crazy good game. As you can see, he had 34 fantasy points. I'm not saying he would have done that against Tampa Bay. Plus, Marvin Jones had a touchdown taken away against the Vikings. That was really it was a weird call. So he could have had an even bigger week. But it is important to note that on that drive, after that touchdown was called back, Marvin Jones did catch, I believe, 2 passes after that. So he did get some of that production back. But still, you get the point. He could have had a 3-touchdown game in week 17. So this is completely different than week 16. But I'm just saying, like, that just shows you what Marvin Jones can do against a bad defense, a bad secondary, when or in a high-scoring game as well, when Matthew Stafford is playing. But in this game, Matthew Stafford left, like, very early. Was that the first play? It was close to it. Here's my opponent. You can see his crazy good week. You know, he had Devontae Adams heading into the final game of the week, and he just destroyed me. Myles Gaskin. Yeah, so... And here is my dynasty bench, you know, to finish off the season. You can take a quick look at that if you're interested. You know, we had Sutton on IR. I'm excited to get him back. And then here is my kind of roster in week 1. Nothing changed, you know, too much. This is a dynasty league, so there's not a lot of ads and drops. But you can kind of see, you know, I was playing James Conner to start the year, and that changed over time, you know, because he kind of faded. Yeah, really not a lot changed on the bench if you look at it. You know, I ended up trading for Dallas Goedert at one point. I made a video about it. That was pretty much the main trade that I made. I might have done a couple other things, but yeah, you can see comparing the two lineups here. So yeah, that's pretty much the recap of the season, guys. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update because, you know, I've been making these videos kind of going over my week by week process of setting my lineups and what transactions I made. So I thought you guys, let's leave it on the championship. There we go. So I thought you guys would maybe want to see, you know, what the team was looking like. And I just realized when I was showing you guys my my bench to start the season, my my face cam was in the way. There. See, that's what my bench looked like to start the season. I guess I didn't really have to move it. I could have just scrolled down more, but you get the point. So yeah, now that was last season. That was the 2020 season. Now it's time to talk about what's coming up for 2021 and beyond. So I have a gaming channel and a running channel. I'm a student athlete. So getting a master's. So I haven't been able to really make like consistent fantasy content like I want to. But in the off season, kind of what I want to do is when I see a storyline that interests me, or if I think I have like a strong opinion about a player or like a key observation about a player, I'm going to be making just kind of videos about those topics as they arise. I'm not going to do something where like I have like a schedule where like every, X number of days I have a video on this topic, or like I have a news show every week or something like that. I'm just kind of gonna like pick and choose like what topics I really want to talk about and that I think will be helpful for you guys. So that's kind of what I am expecting moving forward, at least in the short term, just because I don't have enough time right now to consistently make like a ton of fantasy videos, like broadly taking a broad look at the league as a whole. But just like for example, I mentioned Tyler Lockett. I want to make a video about him. That's an example about how he finished as, a pretty good wide receiver in the rankings, but kind of just examining his season as a whole and wondering, was his actual value worth where he finished, if that makes sense, in terms of like consistency and, the reliability of him in your lineup. So I'm going to be making videos kind of like that. I'll go over some like off-season moves as they're happening and stuff like that. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Even though, like I said, it's not going to be like a consistent, like, think about like your typical podcast where like, you have 3 podcasts a week or whatever, and you go over the news and like every single tidbit of news that's happening. It's going to be more, not in a negative way, but more kind of like sporadic. Just like if I have a strong opinion about something and I think that you guys would benefit from hearing it, then I'll make a video about it. So it's going to be a little different than maybe what the average like big time show does, but that's just what's going to work best for me, and it's still going to be good content. I'm not going to put anything out just like to do it, right? I'm going to try to make high quality stuff that I put work into. So that's another reason why I don't want to commit to like putting out more content than I'm capable of at the moment, because I want it to be high quality stuff so you guys can actually rely on it and get accurate information from, or at least as accurate as something can be in fantasy, right? So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. And so yeah, that's it for 2020, and now you know what's coming in 2021. Thank you guys for watching the video and following along for this 2020 fantasy football season. It was a lot of fun kind of recapping what I've been doing throughout the year, and I hope it helped you. And make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.